Hey everyone, welcome to HockeyBuzzcast. And I've already been mocked for my Philly shirt, so I'll just let Russ take it from there.
It's Tug McGraw.
Wait, is he wearing a 45?
No, I got no number on here.
Okay.
Just an old vintage shirt I've had for a while.
As long as it's not Willie Montanez, because the Mets once traded for Willie Montanez, and basically they wouldn't give Tom Seaver $100,000 the year before, so Tom Seaver gets traded. They pick up Willie Montanez, who makes $100,000 and hit like 20 homers, and I didn't like him. So
I think for the record, I think this is one of the coolest color combinations in sports.
Actually, and if you want to be fair, you know how like there's always misplaced clothing in different cities. There was one of those in like, I don't know, a Modell's or someplace, Alexander's maybe, when I was shopping as a kid.
Yeah.
I liked the color. I picked it up.
Yeah, it's a great color. It's a great color.
The only one I would ever wear.
Yeah, it's a great color combination. And the Phillies have had some bad jerseys over the years, but
But still, don't confuse that with me liking the Phillies. It's about the colors.
You don't have to. Definitely not. I'm not going to confuse anything for anything.
God forbid, Russ.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
All right, so let's talk about Bob Baffert and the Kentucky Derby, because this is an interesting case. Right now, his horse has tested positive for some sort of derivative after the win. So this complicates things because people have already paid out. No matter what happens, they're not going to give the new winner people money, and they're not going to take money back from the old people. So for the old winners. So no matter what, if you had the other horse and you got, and it turns out a different way, you don't benefit. And if you may win off a losing horse, that's the end of that. There's nothing we can do about that.
Yeah.
And that would, and see, I told Russ when he told me about that, that would be my luck. I would hit the exacta or the trifecta of the race if this horse gets disqualified, but I would have already thrown away my ticket because the other one won, or they've already paid out. In this instance, they've already paid out to the winner, and they don't have the money to pay out to the other one, so you're shit out of luck.
Right. When I was 13, I was in OTB with some people I probably shouldn't have been in there with, and older people from the area. And what I learned then was you don't rip up your ticket right away. Never do it. That's the best advice I can give.
No, that's true. I mean, I spent a lot of time. I mean, people don't realize that probably one of the weirder things about me is that my uncle, my dad's brother, was the for 25 years covered horse racing for the Philadelphia Bulletin.
Okay.
I'm not the first sports writer in my family.
Wow.
And yeah, so when I was interning at the Inquirer when I was in college, that kind of helped me along because people were like, "Oh yeah, you're Steve's nephew," So he was a great. I was at Garden State Park where he worked, and which is a racetrack that burned down. And I was there the day it burned down.
I said don't say anymore. There's no statute of limitations on that. Don't say anymore.
No statute on ours.
No, but now it's like I don't know. It's like another mall. But
it is. We've talked about it. It's like a whole big shopping center.
Yeah, it's a huge shopping center now. But I was there. I when I was a kid, I met Walter Matthau there with he was a friend of my uncle's.
He was a well-known compulsive gambler.
Oh, he's a well-known horse guy, yeah, for sure. And he was a friend of my uncle's. My uncle knew what he was doing, so I've been around horse racing for a long time, and I used to go all the time.
All right, so here's the rest of the story. So, of course, Baffert is saying he's doing his own investigation, kind of like the way OJ did his own investigation, and
searching for the real killers.
And so, right now, the story is
like Trump does his own investigation.
Yeah, right now the story is there was another horse that was in the proximity of his horse. That horse did have some sort of juice, steroids, whatever, in that horse. The horse peed on the hay, and the winning horse ate that hay. And this is how they might possibly have ingested it. And I got to tell you, if you ever wanted to hear a load of baloney.
Yeah, that's got to be something.
And also the grossest story. Yeah, great.
It is a gross story to put out there.
The horse
is eating piss-soaked hay. That's wonderful.
Yeah, that
Which, by the way, I've been around horses a lot. And I've never heard of horses even doing that. I don't even think they would eat it.
No, I mean, horses are not that dumb. I mean, horses don't eat hay soaked in other horses' pee. That's not a thing a horse would do. Dogs.
But here's the worst part. You know what the worst part is, Zach? And this is where I've adopted a couple of greyhounds, and they're mistreated all around the world. People have given them cocaine, Viagra, or whatever. When you do that to a horse. Yeah, the horse doesn't know what's going on. The horse didn't have any say in this.
No.
And the fact that, this happened and now we're going to act like it magically got there. We'll see what happens when the test comes.
And it's
through.
like actually blaming the horse too. Like it's
I know.
blaming the horse, which is
In
incredible.
a way, they are blaming the horse. Yes.
The horse ate that hay. It's the horse's fault, I say.
Well,
no, that's
either they're going to blame the horse or they're going to blame a world famous trainer who has won.
Very controversial. Like has always been like has been kicked out of different things. I mean, he had to go through a special panel to be reinstated for this. I mean, this is like completely.
He's blaming it on cancel culture
because the family who won, I bet, didn't know anything about it. To be honest,
I know. And you can't blame cancel culture. Cancel culture has nothing to do with this. Nothing.
A horse is a horse, of course.
You can't cancel a horse anyway. And the point is to me, like the family who won. I mean, they bought the horse for like very little, right? It was like really cheap, $5,000 or something like that.
I didn't know the price, so
it was crazy. I mean, and that was, it was a great story, like this, and they don't know what the trainer's doing. They don't know.
No, it's not up to them to know. Honestly.
It was the same price as a box of glue. Now
I actually won some things though in that race. We went to the Kentucky Derby. We didn't go to the Kentucky Derby, but we had a Kentucky Derby party, and I won by picking the last place horse, which is like something that we do at our Kentucky.
Really, you're
Derby.
allowed to do that
at our Kentucky Derby parties. We have like our own little.
Oh, you're at the party, not for real. Okay.
Here's the funny story. So like,
it's the low ball Kentucky Derby.
Well, like you can win by picking. There's 3 prizes. There's one for picking the first. There's one for picking the last. So, and there's one for picking, I think, the closest thing that you can get to a trifecta or whatever. So, my horses weren't even in the top 3. I don't think any of them. But I did pick the last place horse, which was Soup and a Sandwich or whatever it was called, which was like the funniest name I thought. So I had to go with it. It was just ridiculous. It was also a white horse. So it was easy to follow if it was last place or not.
Sandwich. I remember seeing the name.
Never bet the gray horse, Rob.
No, Captain Neo would never touch a gray horse either. We went to the racetrack a lot together. So I won. So I won so it was always like a white elephant prize, like I won this like China set of like cups and things like that were somebody were given for a wedding or whatever, and I won this thing, and it's never been opened or whatever. So I went on as I'm sitting there, I go on eBay. And I'm like, I'm just wondering if this thing's anywhere on eBay, and it's selling for like $40. So as we're sitting there, I put it on eBay for $30. I'm like, and I took really bad pictures of it. Like I took a picture with my wife, like looking at it, like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. Right. I put another picture of it with it half off the counter, like it's like that could fall at any moment. And I sold the thing for $30 yesterday.
Wow.
So now I got to mail it. Now I got to take this out to mail, but it's still, I think it's hilarious.
On this show, we should have awarded somebody for picking a team last if they got it right, but you didn't. We wouldn't award it to you because you picked the Sabres to make the playoffs. So
I did not pick the Sabres to make the playoffs.
You did. You said they would possibly.
Yes, you did.
I did not. Can you go? But you guys go. By the way, I was going through today. The last couple years.
You didn't say they were making the playoffs. You said they could definitely be a playoff.
They have a chance. They had a chance the year before. I mean, they were like 2 points behind.
That's fine. We'll go with that.
That's what I said. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't pick them to be last. I think
there's nothing wrong with that except they were the worst team in hockey.
They have a chance. They're in the NHL, so they have a chance.
Well, today we're going to talk about something like that you guys I know will love. Here we go.
Well, can I just put one little note, one little cherry on top of the sundae?
All right.
Talk about, I sometimes think that newspapers like the New York Post or the National Enquirer pay celebrities to do things that give them content. I would not doubt that either Ben Affleck or Jennifer Lopez got a couple $1 million from the Enquirer to get back together for at least a week, so they could do a month or 2 months worth of Bennifer story. I mean, we're already hearing about this. I don't give a good goddamn about either.
And you're perpetuating it.
I mean, I think that might be the case with some people who are like, like I could see like a Jenner or I could see somebody who who wants publicity doing that, but those two people have more money than God. There's no reason that they're going to get.
I would never thought we'd be talking about Bennifer and Mike would be the one bringing it to the show. That's all.
Yes, I picked Columbus to win the division. That's very true, Funky. And I missed on that one. I picked the Devils to make the playoffs. I missed on that one. So yeah, there's definitely, I picked Washington not to make the playoffs. I missed on that one. I'm not saying when I was wrong, I'm wrong. I'm saying I'm wrong, but these guys anyway. All right, let's move on. I got a new microphone today, so everybody like it? Sounds good. I was listening. I was going through picking up some things. I'm like, man, my microphone sucks. So anyway, I fixed it. Here we go. It's the 11th. We're gonna say, yeah, it's the 11th. Hello, Hockey World. It's
come on.
It's Wednesday. No. Damn it. Well, it's Tuesday, May 11th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and if I'm Ben Affleck, I'd rather have Jennifer Garner than Jennifer Lopez.
I'm Russ Cohen. This isn't the OK Corral. This is just people working.
I'm actually, you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And now we have our teams are set. And we don't have to worry about the whole Calgary craziness. It sounds like what I wrote about yesterday.
Yes!
It is over. Yes, that's very good, Mike. It's over for sure. But should it be? And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Because I'm going to talk about whether or not we should have a 4 or 5 play in the future. And I think that this year we're not going to have it, obviously, because this year when I talked to the NHL, they were all in the beginning of the year, they were like, that would be a luxury. We'll be happy to get whatever we can get in, So adding another best of 3 series in there for a 4 or 5 play in just didn't seem, but they did like it in the bubble. And there were people that thought the concept was pretty good. So to not to go to 24 teams, but to go to 20 teams, I think we will see in the future. So along those lines, I want to ask this question. Mike, go ahead. Let's talk about first whether or not that we should do that in the future.
Well, here's the reason why it probably will happen, because the NBA is talking about it seriously, and we know that the NHL usually follows what the NBA does. The NBA is doing a 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9 play-in because they played less than a normal schedule. And one of the potential matchups, and now I don't follow the NBA at all, so I'm just looking up their standings right now, but I was listening to a Bill Simmons podcast, and he was talking about the possibility of right now a Lakers Golden State matchup in the play-in. And right now the Lakers are 38-30, the Golden State's 36-33, so it's within the realm of possibility. If that happens, more people will watch that game than probably watch most of the playoffs before the conference finals, because it's Curry versus LeBron.
Sure. And and I think that, and some people are saying it's about money, and yeah, it is about money, but it's not going to be, not about money. But at the same time, next year we have Seattle coming in the league, and with Seattle, we're at 32 teams, and then we're at if we stay at 16, we're at exactly half the league makes the playoffs and half the league doesn't. And I think that is something the NHL doesn't love. I think the NHL wants more than half the league making the playoffs because, their fan base, you want, that means that half of your fan base is upset, to have that idea of 4 playing 5, especially when all divisions are suddenly 8 teams big. It's a different thing, 4 plays 5 in a 7-team division than it is an 8-team division. So to me, that by adding 32 teams, I think we're definitely going to go to it, and I'm up for it. I'm game for it. I think it's good. I think it's a good thing, and this is the reason why, because we have seen teams, the way the NHL works now, and granted, this is fair. I mean, you're looking at the entire season, right? But we see teams get hotter as the season goes on, and teams get colder as the season goes on. And right now, so that's why I'm going to pose this question to the panel today. If we were to have the 4 or 5 matchups this year, who would you be picking in a best of 3 series? And I think that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. So we'll start off with the East, with the range, it would be the Rangers and the Islanders, right? So that would be the 4 or 5.
Well, let me give my opinion on the actual play-in.
Go ahead.
I'm okay with it only if we're doing it where the 2 teams can come from any division and it's based on winning percentage only. Because otherwise you are going to have a team that, let's say it's in the East and they're in 5th place in the East, but they'd be in 3rd place in another division. I don't want to start getting into that game. I want the 2 teams with the closest winning percentage to not making the playoffs, no matter what the division.
Okay, so are you going to go like we've been doing like lately into conferences? Would you say you're going to conferences? And would you have
no, it could be any 2 teams, no
any
conference.
I would go conferences, because otherwise you can end up with some weird matchups.
What you have to follow that up with is you have to go with conference playoffs and not divisional playoffs.
And I think we're going back to the playoffs we had before. Okay, so that's what we're heading back there. So,
and I think it would be conference playoffs, but I think otherwise, because Mick Kern had brought this up to me, and it's a good point. Otherwise, you are going to have some teams that shouldn't be there, but because they're in a division the way it is, whether it's easy or not, they're going to get in on this play-in, and I just want the best teams.
Right. And I'm with you on that. I think that's good. And I think
we only have 4 spots and everything. If there's a 5th team that's better in the North, that's better than any other team in the league, I want that team in the play-in.
Well, just
and it won't be the North next year.
Going back to the GM meetings from a couple weeks ago, there were 2 proposals for scheduling and for playoffs. One of them was going back to the old conference playoffs with the division winners, the 3 division winners being the top 3 seeds, and then 4 through 8. And then this would just expand it to 4 through 10, with 7 playing 10 and 8 playing 9.
Yeah, right.
And then conference playoffs 1 through whatever. I'm in favor of that because I think after playing, the difference between division games and conference games is 4 to 3 or 5 to 3.
Okay.
So really, it's not. This year is sort of the aberration because they had to play these teams so many times.
Right.
When you're playing the difference between 4 or 5 and 3. The divisions really are meaningless except for the sort of geographic norms, and that's it. So if I am for conference playoffs because honestly, after the last few years, it's boring watching Toronto play Boston every year or Toronto playing. Last year was Columbus.
And let's face it, Toronto's sick of losing to Boston every year, but that's not a point, right? Anyhow, move on.
So I think this is all valid, and I think the most likely scenario in this will be what you just said, Mike, with 7 playing what is it, 7 playing 10 or
6? 7 playing 10, 8 playing 9.
8 playing 9, right? And that's how we'll see this play out. But I think that's likely to happen. I think that I'm okay with that. I really think that it'll be good for the league and it'll be fun to watch.
I don't know about best of 3.
Maybe that's how you're going to have. No, it won't be best of 3. It's going to be a 1-game playoff.
No, you see, I think a 1-game playoff is too diminishing to the regular season, in my opinion.
That's why I'm doing it off a winning percentage. Right. I'm not doing it on anything else. So
that's why you finish in the top 3 in the division. There's your motivation.
I know that's a big motivation, and I like that. But okay, but then to think that you can finish 4th and be knocked out in 1 game, whatever. That to me is a little bit.
That's what they do in baseball.
Yeah, I know, but then baseball's a different ball of wax, though. So I think and the way the league runs is different. Okay, the money's different. Everything's different.
For an 82-game schedule, and you have a 1-game play-in game. In baseball, you have 162 games. You're going to a 1-game,
and I think that's kind of crazy too. But
And actually, baseball was the last one to expand their playoffs. They had the hardest way of making it.
Yeah, but they've been the longest to stay with a really simple playoffs too. So But anyway, I think that let's look at this team's and the thing is this, I know we were joking around here. I was talking about the Rangers having a shot, and I was talking about, and I thought they did have a chance. And then we talked about Calgary having a chance. And the reality is that these teams were very good towards the end of the year. And what I think the play-in thing does is it gives a team that starts off slow a chance to still be there if they are one of the best teams at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
In the playoffs, I want to see the best teams in the playoffs. And that changes from October to April.
Okay, but you realize, you're never going to see that.
I know, but I want to do the best I can to see it, and this helps it. There's always going to be one team that maybe finishes at the bottom of the league that's really hot at the end.
This is a very brutal sport, and attrition is part of the reason why you'll never see that.
No, and there's always going to be 1 or 2. I agree, but I want to see this year. Calgary didn't recently going 8-1-1 in 10 games. It was impressive. What the Rangers were doing there for a while before they hit the wall again, before the Tom Wilson journey that they went on. It was impressive. So let's go through these divisions for a second and see what we think would happen. So to me, so we start in the East with the Rangers, and as it turns out from last night, we now know the Islanders are going to finish in 4th. Which is surprising, I think, to a lot of teams that the Islanders are going to finish. A lot of people, the Islanders are going to finish in 4th. I definitely picked them for 1st. I think we might have all picked them for 1st. But you're muted.
He's got a nail gun going in the back.
Right, it's fine. You picked them for 1st too. So this to me is this. If this series is happening, I'm going with the Islanders. If it's the best of 3, I'm going with the Islanders in 2. I think the Islanders would take this series. No trouble against the Rangers. You guys agree with that?
Yes, this year's Rangers against this year's Islanders. The Rangers might even get swept in that.
That's what I think. I think it's 2 games in best of 3. I think it's 2 games, and I think that
it's best of 3. They're getting swept.
Yeah, I think it's 2 games, and it's just the Islanders just have had the Rangers number this year in a big way. That's not even close. So we'll move on from that, but let's go to the North because that's where it gets really interesting to me. Montreal and Calgary. If they were to actually play in a best of 3 series right now, I'm going with Calgary in 3.
Yeah, you're insane.
Why?
Why? Okay, well, Carey Price is skating today. So is Carey Price in there and you're still picking against them to go in 3?
Yeah, I am. I mean,
No,
Carey Price was in
you're
there.
insane. I'll tell you
Carey
what.
Price was in there when they were stinking it up too for a while there, by the way.
Okay. Not in the playoffs, though. Playoffs are different.
They are.
Montreal will be way more physical against them. Montreal will match them in net. Even if you want to give Calgary a slight edge in net, fine. And Montreal has guys that will score dirty goals. Calgary has a couple. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one thing with Montreal right now, I mean, I will grant you that if it's a play-in series, Gallagher will play, probably Price will play. Byron played last night.
Right.
I don't know about Deneau, who's got a concussion, so he might be out. And then last night, in their second last regular season game, they lose Eric Stahl, Josh Anderson, and Jake Allen didn't practice this morning. Now, that might be rest. But
they're just getting therapy right now, so we don't know that Eric Stahl.
It might be rest, but we don't know. Yeah. And then,
I mean, honestly, losing Eric Stahl is a benefit because Jake Evans matched up against Connor McDavid, and he was tremendous.
Yeah.
He can play defense. Eric Stahl can't do that for the Canadians. The little bit of scoring you might get from Eric Stahl, you need Jake Evans' input. And I've been saying that all year. You need more minutes from that kid more than you need Eric Stahl on the ice.
Yeah,
Jake Evans had 2 assists yesterday.
Yeah,
no, I absolutely agree. All right, then. So you guys are going. You go with I go with Calgary in 3, like I said. But you guys will go with Montreal.
I'm going Montreal.
Every 3 or 2? Do you think this is a sweep?
No, I think Calgary wins 1 because it would be a heated affair, and I think they win 1.
I think it'd be a fun series. I mean, I think
it would be a fun series.
It'd be a really fun series to see. Then going over to the West.
Hold on, I'm going to say this one time.
Yeah,
it's not Nicholas Sundstrom, but Funky said Patrick Sundstrom. You can say whatever you want about Patrick Sundstrom. Don't ever say anything bad about Nicholas Sundstrom, or we're blocking you. Anyhow,
there you go. West. This would be St. Louis and Arizona. I don't give Arizona much of a chance in that series, honestly. Like I think that Arizona's done a good job, but the Blues are getting it together, and they're also got like so much playoff experience. I think that
St. Louis in 1.
St. Louis in 1. All right, I would say 2, but yeah, okay. But then we get to the other one, which I think would be fantastic to see, which would be Dallas and Nashville. And I think that this series, I would go with Dallas in 3 in that series. If they were to play each other,
I don't know how fantastic it would be because, we've seen a number of these games all year, and I don't know. Dallas was underwhelming this year because of injuries and because of Stanley Cup hangover. And I thought they were going to make the playoffs, and they never really put together long enough. And Nashville basically got there on the strength of that 7 wins out of 8 right around the deadline and not trading players away.
Well, they went like 21-7-2 in the last.
Yeah, but I have to take Nashville because at the end of the season, Nashville was the better team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that and it's funny because I'm going against 2 of my favorite teams here in this thing because honestly, Montreal and Nashville are 2 of my favorite teams, but I think that both will go down in 3.
Let's take advantage of talking about Nashville to talk about last night.
Yeah, I want to get into that because I want to talk about the two games last night. We saw the preview of the Central Division playoffs last night in both those games. They were both really fun to watch. So
and let me just say this, and we've said this all year, Ek.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was illustrated last night. Carolina has a goaltending problem because more than likely they're going to go with Mrazek in the playoffs.
They will go with Mrazek.
They're not going to go with Nedeljkovic unless Mrazek drops the ball. And we know what Reimer is. Reimer is a playoff choker. So they're probably not going to go with Reimer. They're going to either go to Mrazek and Nedeljkovic. And maybe the game was meaningless because Carolina, had everything locked up in first place. But I'll tell you one thing. They didn't look good. Nashville looked enthused. Yeah, they didn't have anything to play for either. So that was their last game. They had already had but they were sending a message, and they took Carolina apart.
They did, and you know what? They took them apart both nights, Mike. And that it wasn't just. I watched both those games. So to me, I was really.
I think Carolina has a chance, and when we make predictions, I'm thinking about this. They have a chance to be 2 years ago as Tampa. They really do.
Yeah, they do, and I think that they made a big mistake in not going all. I really felt like they went easy on Nashville to get Nashville. Like I really.
Oh yeah, see, we should talk about that too. The Islanders pulling their goalie earlier than you normally would to try and get a point out of a game so they could play the Capitals proved my point that they wanted to play the Capitals. I don't think they wanted to play the Penguins.
You can think of it either way. Like it's a funny thing about that. Like part of it's like they pulling their goalie way too early really did increase the chances that they could also lose that game. Like that.
No, but that's not the way you're thinking. Like you're a pro team. You're thinking we're going to try and get a point in this game because we've decided this is who we can play. If they didn't want to play, then they could just sat back, right? If they want
the thing about that, the two best teams are the Bruins and the Islanders.
No, they're not.
I think they are.
The Penguins are better than both of them.
I don't think so. And we'll find out. We'll find out. I mean, the Islanders wanted to play they should have wanted to play the Penguins, right? Like based on everything we've talked about.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, their record against the Penguins was way better than the record against the Capitals.
Not these Penguins. Not the Penguins when they've made moves. Not the Penguins lately. No.
Yeah. No, I mean, and the Capitals right now are a bit of a mess. Like the Capitals are
falling apart. They've been falling apart.
I mean, their goaling issues. Ovechkin's not playing right now. No one knows what's happening next. I think that it's not that I don't like the Penguins. I mean, people just keep getting on. I mean, I see these holes and I just don't see them as a. I mean, I could be listen. I mean, I will tell you this right now that I would put Sullivan as like one of my coach MVPs of the year.
I said he should be the coach of the year, but I said I think Quenneville will win. But I did say Sullivan should win it.
I actually think Evason's going to win it in Minnesota. But
I think he's third. I would put Evason third.
According to Pierre LeBrun, he thinks Brind'Amour is going to win it.
Yeah, Brind'Amour can't win it because we all knew Carolina was going to be really good, and they were really good. So that's why Brind'Amour can't win it. If you think about the man hours lost on Pittsburgh, now, again, a lot of teams lost because of COVID, but injury-wise on Pittsburgh, the amount of players they've lost, plus they had a change in management, which is not easy on a coach because all of a sudden you're under the microscope. Sullivan's done an amazing job, actually.
I think I heard you guys say that the Islanders pulled the goalie against Boston because they
wanted to play the Capitals. They wanted to get that point.
Now,
right, and Mike points out in the chat room. I'm sorry, Mike, I mixed that up. The Penguins were 6-2 against the Islanders. So
that's what I thought.
So I just mixed that up in my head. All these numbers in my head.
I don't think the Islanders match up well against.
They definitely wanted to play.
But I'll tell you this right now. Boston pulled off a coup, and I said as much at the deadline with the Taylor Hall deal. They gave up next to nothing. I mean, Anders Bjork could be a good player.
He's a decent player. He is.
But they didn't give up a first-round pick. And Taylor Hall last night scored 2 goals. He's got 8 goals and 16.
Did you see that goal that he scored in overtime too? Like that goal that was such an unbelievable that is baffling to me that the guy who scored that goal last night was Taylor Hall that we've been talking about.
It's not baffling, Eck. We saw when Taylor Hall was jaking it against the Flyers with the Sabres. There's no way he was giving the same effort. He wasn't because I said
it's incredible. But that's a real consternation on a guy like to me.
I know, but think about this. So when Granato came in, if we're going to use the excuse that Kruger just made every life miserable because it was bad, okay. When Granato came in, Middlestat started scoring. Reinhart was scoring. A lot of players. Dahlin was getting more points. How come no Taylor Hall?
Because
he's already checked out.
Because at that point, Russ, he was already on his way out. They were basically already.
Right, and you as a hockey player should never ever do that.
No, especially a guy who's won an MVP and who confesses to be such a great guy.
I think he was beaten down by the incredible dysfunction that was in the Sabres organization. He realizes that his decision to come to Buffalo cost him millions of dollars and in a new contract. You said it, I said it. He's probably not going to get any more than a 1 or 2 year deal.
Yeah, he's the new Alexander Semin. I don't know if I'm getting 30 goals or if I'm getting 12.
It depends right now because if he has this. If he keeps going like he's going, and the Bruins have a really long playoff run,
I'm not giving him 4-year deal.
I wouldn't either, but I think I think the Bruins will try to find a way to keep him. Honestly,
didn't the Bruins learn from the Charlie Coyle situation that you shouldn't react like that?
I know, but man, that was such an unbelievably highly skilled goal. Like it
doesn't matter. Here's what I would do. I would say if I made it to the conference finals or I won the Stanley Cup and I'm the Bruins and I had Taylor Hall, I'd say, Taylor, thanks for coming aboard. We enjoyed your time here. I'm glad we all won. Good luck in free agency. That's exactly what I would say.
And that might be what they have to do or they want to do. But I don't know.
Guys are just better that way.
I don't know. I mean, I think that Hall could also be like a huge part of them them maintaining their level. Like the Bruins.
Yes,
The Bruins.
He's a very talented player, but the problem is I'm not giving him $10 million for 4 years anymore.
No, but I don't think anyone will. And I think that when it comes down to it, there's always a team that like he's more valuable to than anybody else, and it might be the Bruins. I mean, it might at the end of the day, it might be the Bruins. It depends what happens to the Bruins. Like if the Bruins win a Stanley Cup with him, all bets are off. I mean,
yeah, but then you're paying for past performance again. I want to pay.
No, he's a big part of that Stanley Cup run. They're paying for.
I get it, but again, I'm still paying him for that past performance to get to the Cup, and I don't know what he's giving me the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to Calgary, like I've said many times. But I still think that this is good. I still think what's happening now is really fascinating, and just the fact that I haven't seen a guy forever make that play where you skate on your back of your blade.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's a really impressive. It's
okay,
a really.
But you know what? I agree with what you're saying. Here's what I will say. We all agree, and I think scouts would agree with this, and almost everybody would agree with this. The Taylor Hall that won the MVP with the Devils is not this Taylor Hall, even though this one looks good right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's true for sure. Because Taylor Hall, the one with the Devils, won with a team that he was the leader on, and now he's on. Now he's on a second line. Yeah, and that's taking some of the stuff away from him, which is helping him for sure.
And one factor here is he's playing with Krejci, who's also a UFA. Yeah. So if they sign him, there's no guarantee that they're going to get this Taylor Hall because Krejci probably won't be there.
I also shake Krejci's hand and say
predictions later, but I think the Bruins are going to take apart the Capitals. I'm just going to tell you that right now. We're going to get into that, but we're not getting into it yet. But okay, let's talk about the Central Division.
I was going to say about Krejci. If I'm the Bruins with Krejci, I say, hey, David, thanks for all your years of service. When you come back in, we'll give you your video moment on the screen, and good luck in free agency.
Unless video moments last night, the Brian Elliott video moment was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was nice.
They did a good job with that.
It was good that they said that today, because when we get to the Fletcher press conference, they trashed the goaltending. So
we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's first start with what I think are going to be two fantastic series in the Central Division. And Mike, you don't think so because you think the Central Division is boring, I think. But I think that we're going to see. We are going to see first of all, I mean, the last two games where Nashville's just taking apart Carolina is fascinating. Now you can say it doesn't matter to Carolina, and it doesn't. These games don't matter, but it is hard in the NHL to immediately turn that around. If they do, and they say they pick apart Nashville 5-1 in game one of the round, whatever, then okay, fine. But if they don't, if Nashville set it up that if they can win that first game in Carolina.
Oh, Carolina's gripping the sticks very tight.
Carolina's in real trouble if they lose that first game. That first game becomes the series in that series, and that's because of what happened with the last two games of the Predators. And likewise, what you saw with Florida, there's a problem with Tampa, and I know that Tampa has got their guys coming back.
Well, I don't know how many weeks I've been saying that the dream scenario for Carolina was that Florida and Tampa would beat the crap out of each other. And you saw it last night. How many fights were there? How many cheap shots were there in that game? That's just a sample of what – and you can't say that game didn't matter for Tampa because they played Vasilevsky. If it didn't matter, they would have played
no, but you know what? The depth that Tampa has – they have Ross Colton. They have Alex Baraboulet. All of these guys are going to be available to come in if they need them, and Florida doesn't have that. Florida's got their guys and their guys alone, and so I think I won't give it away, but I think Tampa will match up fine. It will be a slobber knocker, but I don't think it knocks Tampa out of the playoffs for the next series.
A couple of days ago, you wrote about is it fair that Stamkos and Ruff are going to come in? Why not? The rules say that they can. And
no, the rules say they can. I'm not saying I didn't write is it illegal or is it wrong. I just wrote is it fair? Just basic fairness. Okay, let's get across. The rules are the rules, and they can be changed or not changed based on what we think. But right now, no, what Tampa's doing is perfectly legal. I'm not sitting back and blaming anything on them. I know the NHL is definitely the NHL is put it this way. They're looking into it, but they're never going to be able to prove anything. And at the end of the day, because you can sit there and Kucherov can say. There's always doctors that'll say he shouldn't be playing. That's fine. It's not, and because he probably shouldn't be, but any other athlete might be. I mean, the issue is if the playoffs started in April, would he be in there as well when the playoffs started? And I think yes, he would have been. If the playoffs started in June, would he be in? Not, he wouldn't be in until June, and that's he wouldn't be in until June. That because he's an NHL hockey player. The difference here is not are you healthy enough to play, but are you healthy enough to play? are you healthy enough to play if this was the most important game of the season?
Well, again, but it's all hypothetical. At the end of the day, everybody would want their team to do exactly what Tampa did. Everybody.
Yeah, no, and if you can do that, I mean, and this is a team. The thing about this, they won the Stanley Cup. We're like, they are in doom. They're in so much trouble, cap space. They ended up trading for Savard at the deadline. I mean, that craziness of that in and of itself, to me, that they got stronger and were able to add salary. It's just like that. Well, it's not fair. Like, fairness doesn't. When you go into fairness, it's just not fair.
Listen, the San Francisco 49ers did the same thing in the NFL, and then they eventually changed the cap rules. They'll eventually change the cap rules, but until they do it,
no. For now, it's legal. I'm not. And again, I'm not debating whether it's legal. And it's legal, and they're playing. And whatever. Like Bobby Clark said on Faceoffs. You cheat as much as you can, and until you get caught. I get all that, and that is how like. And I am blaming the rules, Funky. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm saying, are the rules fair? And I'm not really trying to bend in this situation, which is like very amplified by the fact that Kucherov is one of the best players in the NHL, and also Stamkos is one of the best players in the NHL. Whether or not he's still there or not, or how healthy he is, we don't know. And Stamkos, I think Stamkos is legitimately injured, and I think that could be a little bit more of an issue. I think Kucherov was ready a while ago.
Right, but the thing is, he had the surgery preseason, and everybody once he had that surgery, he was not coming back until the playoffs because they couldn't fit his 9-something.
Right. I mean, if anybody knows, if anybody knows Steve Stamkos, they know he will come back sooner than you expect him to from any injury, because of the kind of competitor he is. But Mike just gave you the magic answer. So. But
I think you're right, Russ. And where I think the Stamkos is going to be ready for the playoffs and probably shouldn't be, in all likelihood, he's coming back sooner because he's the playoffs, like Kucherov could have done if the playoffs started in April. That's where I'm at. Like,
well, we don't know if Stamkos is going to play game one. Maybe they're going to sit him a couple games.
It sounds like he is. And I mean, and no one, and I've talked to Florida, and they're not like saying, they're not crying or anything like that. They're not saying everybody knows these are the rules. No, everybody knows these are the rules. It's like, and that's perfectly fine.
Bad look if they do it.
Oh yeah, no question.
Florida needs.
But I will say last night though. Oh my gosh, last night's game with Florida and Tampa was fantastic.
Yeah, with Brawl and everything.
I mean, this is going to be a hell of a series, and also getting the home ice advantage meant a lot to Florida. And last night you could see that in that game. It didn't mean as much to Tampa, obviously, because Tampa doesn't care. But for Florida, for Quenneville's ability to match once Kucherov comes back is important.
Okay, but here's one factor, and I don't know who the heck I'm going to pick in that series. I'll probably pick Tampa because of the Cup champions. But the one thing I do see in terms of a warning sign, and we saw this a couple years ago when they lost to Columbus.
Yep.
Edmund is coming into the playoffs hurt. Stamkos is coming in after missing, a month or 5 weeks. Kucherov hasn't played a regular season game. He's coming in. It's a lot to expect those guys to just come in and play like they played all year at the drop of the hat.
You're 100% right, but that's not the biggest issue Tampa has right now. The biggest issue Tampa has right now is Vasilevsky. He is not Vasilevsky right now. He might be able to turn it on, but goalies aren't. It's not like for goalies turning it on is a very different ball of wax than for a normal player. He is getting beaten on very regular shots, and it's been going on for a couple weeks now. It's not something that's brand new either. He's really last night. The old Vasilevsky doesn't let up 3 of those goals. I mean, he really just the first goal, the Uyghur goal. That's not a goal Vasilevsky should be letting up ever. I mean, you're not talking about a really great shot. You're talking about a guy who's almost out at the blue line taking a wrist shot that beats him without a screen. It's just clear. So to me, it's meanwhile, Drager is doing a hell of a job in there. And the funniest thing here, I'm trying to get Bill Zito to come on the show this week, and I might be able to get him. But I think the funny thing about this is Zito's relationship with the Tampa Bay Lightning, right, in the playoffs, which is the crazy thing, because think about him. He's been with Columbus for 2 years. Columbus beats him 2 years ago. And then last year they have an epic series where Columbus comes closer to beating Tampa than anyone last year in the bubble, and they lose. But, and now he leaves Columbus, goes to Florida, and who does he end up playing in the playoffs again? It's Tampa. It's really kind of a fun little story. And I think it's rare to sit there to say that a general manager can get inside another team's head, but he has them playing. He has Florida playing like Columbus played them. When you watched that game last night, that the Florida's playing the same thing, and that's on Quenneville too, obviously. But it's fascinating because I think the players he brought in were more like Columbus style players, and they're playing that system, and they're going to give them all kinds of trouble.
I have been using him as an example because, like you said, he brought in like 18 new players. For all these other teams or fans of other teams or media that say you can't make these changes, there were guys that did. So he did that, and kudos to him. What I'm looking at, Eck, is the attendance, and it looks like it's picked up lately. So even in February, though, they had some lousy games. I mean,
they have. But that again is like, I think that first of all, this is Florida. Obviously this is Florida, right? But there will be, and I don't know what. There was a rumor at one point that they're at least gonna have half the people for the playoffs, I think, or 3/4 of the people.
My question is, will they have the most in that they're allowed to have? Will they be 100% attendance for what they're allowed? I don't know what the answer is.
I don't know either, and I think that is something that is obviously an issue with Florida. There's no question about it.
Because you can't get a better matchup than this. This
is as sexy of a playoff series that you can get for the Florida Panthers. This is everything that you'd want. Like, this is the Stanley Cup champions. This is Tampa across this. This is everything that you would want, and everything the Lightning doesn't want.
Right.
I want to say that it's interesting that way. I'm not saying I still won't pick the Lightning, because I probably will, but I'm just saying that this will play out in ways that are going to be way harder than the series is going to be way more. And you're right. But you know what, Mike? It might be Nashville that benefits from these two teams beating up each other.
Maybe
it might not be Carolina, which is. And think about that for a second. If this Predators team somehow could get out of the division, that would be pretty astonishing.
Well, I mean, the question is, I know we saw Nashville really whip it up yesterday, and I think part of that was it was potentially the last game regular season for Pekka Rinne.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's talk about that for a second.
And let me just finish the point, then we can.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I would assume that John Hines is going to go with Saros in the playoffs.
Yes.
Now, and not with Rinne. Now, we've been saying it. I don't know how long we've been saying it. The dilemma here is the goaltending. I think they beat Nashville up front. I think their defense is pretty decent, but I think Carolina's is better. The goaltending is going to be the key in the series. If Mrazek drops the ball, then you go to a rookie in Nedeljkovic who you don't know whether he can withstand the rigors of the playoffs. And with Nashville, you've got Saros, who has been the understudy to Rinne for years. I think there's question marks there, but if Carolina drops the ball and they lose a couple games because their goaltending is average, then it could snowball. So it's conceivable that Nashville could win that.
It is, and they're going to start with Saros. There's no question about it. However, I will say this: watching Rinne play last night, he was impressive last night, and Rinne still has. I mean, he doesn't. I wouldn't want to depend on him to win you a playoff series. But if Saros were to go down or have a rough game, I wouldn't think that it would be a bad thing to bring in Rinne for a bit. And I think he could actually, he's such a leader on that team, and he's such a different style than Saros. That's one of the hardest things I think on the Predators defense is that they have to play when they play with two totally different goalies. And the defense, I think that's tricky when you're a defense trying to play. It
is tricky. System. You're right.
I mean, can you name a team that has two goalies that are more different?
Yeah, I think when the Rangers were doing Lundqvist and Talbot, it was like that.
Okay, yeah. So, but right now in the NHL,
more different. How about Ben Bishop and Vasilevsky in 2015?
That's a good one. But how about right now? Who's in the league right now? Who are we looking at? It could be. I'll say this. Smith and Koskinen. Smith and Koskinen are very, very different.
That's because one is old and good, and one is younger and is a piece of crap. I mean, that guy can't stop anything. He is terrible.
No, Koskinen has really been horrendous, and he definitely has. He has fallen apart, and it's going to be up to Smith to win this thing for them, unless they bring in the guy.
I'm going to say Campbell and Anderson because one is moving to be a leader, and one not so sure.
but stylistically they play a similar game. Like they're
No,
stylistically,
no,
Rene plays completely different than Saros in every way.
Anderson is a typical butterfly goaltender. I think Campbell is more hybrid. Like
he's a hybrid. Yeah,
he's more stand up, but then will be acrobatic at times.
Yeah, but Saros is like, even though he's smaller than him, Saros plays the Lundqvist back in the net game, and Rene is about as aggressive.
Well, yeah,
as
he has
goalie.
to play that game because of his height. That's
right,
true.
but Rene is about as aggressive as any goalie we've seen in the last 10 years in the NHL.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Last night he was.
Yeah, last night maybe he was feeling it, but I've watched games of his where he is definitely sitting back more and being less chancy.
Okay, yeah, we have to talk about this because I was watching this. And actually took the video off my TV to point this out. Okay, Leo Komarov, I know him well because of his days with the Leafs.
Yeah.
He slashes Brad Marchand and takes a penalty.
Yep.
As he's going across the ice, he figures, I'm going to the penalty box anyway, so I'm going to get a little jab in. And he jabs Pasternak, and Pasternak went down like it was the grassy knoll and he was JFK.
Right. No, I saw that too. That was I don't know. I mean, you're saying that Pasternak made this look way worse than it.
The game after that, but he acted like he had broken 3 of his ribs.
Right.
Yeah. And Edwards was like,
Jack Edwards was like he was like the guy announcing the Hindenburg.
That's what I was going to say. He was exactly like the guy announcing the Hindenburg. He really was.
I mean, that's where Edwards obviously gets over the top. But I think I honestly have to say I didn't see the play.
Suspend him, league. You better look at that. He just wants to get him out of the playoffs. That's all he was trying to do. Yeah,
I mean, and it really shouldn't matter because Komarov is not the difference on that team. But he is an important player for them though at times because he definitely, and it does bring up something that I think we saw in the chat room, which was interesting. I saw in the chat room earlier, which is people that think that that the Penguins will just skate circles around the Islanders and be able to beat their trap. I don't know about that.
I think they will.
Here's the thing about that. The secret about the Penguins has always been that for all they are, and they're very different than most teams. They're the most talented counterattack team we've ever had. They are completely they want to counter you. They do not want to
not anymore.
They still do. No, they still do. I was watching the other. I've watched.
Yeah, they do it at times. That is not their entire game plan. I don't think that is not their entire game.
The worse their defense gets, the more they play that way. And it's the reality is they have to because the counterattack. It brings your extra forwards back. That's what you have. So the worse their defense gets, the more they play that way. And the problem with playing that way against the Islanders is the same problem of playing that way against the Devils way back in the day. That if you try to counter a team that lives off of countering themselves, because the Islanders live off countering themselves, you will end up in these low scoring games that play right into the Islanders' hands.
I disagree. I will tell you they have 3 of the best clutch goal scorers in the league in Rust, Gensel, and Crosby. They will score goals at any time to kill you. They could have no goals in 2 games and then score in a very important goal. Now, Malkin, who knows? He'll fit in. But Carter has made a big difference because Carter
has made a huge difference. I agree.
Has given them size. It's not like Jeff Carter's streaking down the sidelines anymore with that one shot he had. He's different now, and he is actually going to the net. And when
you know what he's doing? Russ, you're actually right. You know what he's doing, which is like something that people, as much as they rip this guy, the Penguins lost a lot when they lost Phil Kessel in their balance. Like he was a balanced aspect to their game that they haven't had until they got Carter. Like Carter has brought that back in a better, and he's better than Kessel was. So it's
all you have to do is feed Jeff Carter. He's not going to make you better, but you can make him better.
It especially makes Malkin better. And that Malkin losing Kessel was a big deal for Malkin.
Sure.
And Carter makes Malkin better. It's like there's no question about it. So I agree with you.
I don't know if you saw the photo of Phil Kessel with his 900th point in the NHL. Nothing made me feel better about having a dad bod than seeing Phil Kessel.
900.
I know. When I saw that, I'm like, man.
900th game and 600th hot dog.
Look, he looked so out of shape in that picture. It was crazy.
But he's a hockey savant. Like one day it's just going to stop for him. But he looked like John Kruk. That's what he looked like.
He did, but give the guy credit. I mean, he's like,
oh no, he's a great hockey
crying out
player.
loud.
Well,
If he was in shape, how much better would he be? I mean,
but he scored 20 goals this year. Elliot Friedman said that it's very possible that Arizona, because Kessel's contract for next year, he's got a $6.8 million cap hit. $5 million of that is signing bonus. So after July, after the beginning of the beginning of the next year, he could be traded. A team that is looking for offense. He's a $1.8 million cost.
Yeah,
it's big, but that could be what Arizona uses to recoup some of the draft picks. That and Connor Garland. And they're going in that direction because all the names that are coming out regarding coaches that they're pursuing are Nate Lehman, Rocky Thompson, Lane Lambert. It's all either AHL coaches or
what do they all have in common?
Young kids. They work with young kids.
That and they'll be the cheapest of any of those.
The cheapest part, and it's amazing because this is not a guy who was hurting for money. This is not, and this is also not Dundon. This guy.
No, but here's what I've been told, Beck, and I do believe this. They're not hockey people there.
They're not.
That's why they brought in Armstrong because of that. But the problem is they don't have enough hockey people there.
I know people who interviewed for the GM job. I know 2 different people who interviewed the GM job there when this was all going on, right? And what they both said predominantly, because they both ended up talking to the owner in their process, and they both said they liked him. They thought he was a good guy. They thought he was really innovative. And when he talked about the things he's been successful with, he's a genius, obviously. But they also both think that he bought the team to sell it to Quebec, and he saw this as he saw that the NHL is going to need this team to be. The NHL is going to need a team in Quebec. I'm gonna be that team, and he's gonna get a boatload of cash for it. And so it's almost like he's almost flipping them. Like in a way, they got the impression that that we're going to talk about. Now the NHL has this rule, and I don't know if it's going to apply to him or not because it's not an official rule, but it's been, and I've talked about it before, but it is absolutely a rule. And Laidlaw would tell us because Tom Laidlaw was in with a group that was trying to buy the St. Louis Blues at one point, and he told me this rule. And that rule is the NHL says if you buy a team, you cannot move it for 7 years. So that's a rule that the NHL has always had.
I think with the Coyotes, it's always been written into the newest deal because they've had so many owners. So I always feel like there's been a few years that's written into it, but I don't think it's 7.
It's because they looked at the Coyotes and they looked at the Blues. I will have to get him on sometime and talk about it because he would talk about it, I think. And it was interesting. So he definitely said that the NHL does feel like that, you can buy this team, but you gotta, now. And I said to him, I'm like, well, what about, Winnipeg? Like they bought Atlanta and moved them right away. And he said that was a different situation because they were moving right. They knew they were moving Atlanta. They knew they weren't keeping him there. If it's a situation where they're trying to keep him there, they won't work that way. So I think it's 7 years.
What the honest truth is, that may be a rule, but if Phoenix decides, if the people in whatever county that is decide that they don't want to fund that arena anymore, and they're done.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, 100%. And we got to move on really fast because I want to get one thing here, and before we leave, and that is we do have to talk about the Flyers press conference today because that was a fascinating press conference, Russ, from all accounts.
It was.
And it is baffling to me. So many things that Fletcher and Vigneault are saying that feel so disconnected from each other, and they also feel disconnected from the team. So. You start, Russ. Go give your
the first big thing I thought that came out of that was Vigneault basically saying, well, he felt like the American players had a better season, were better trained, like Farabee, as compared to Couturier, who was in Canada, who couldn't get to the rink sometimes and were restricted more. And that whole conversation seemed to be rolled into, you probably should stay in the United States in this offseason and train hard because you don't know what's going to happen when you go back to Canada. Now, But he took Giroux off the he took him out of that because he's a veteran, but he was talking about everybody else like young players.
You know what Couturier did though, right? Couturier came out and said later that he rented a rink. All throughout the offseason, he rented a rink in Canada for himself 3 days a week. That's what he was doing.
And that's interesting because I doubt that the coach knew that.
I don't think because he's never in the locker room. He doesn't know anything about these players.
And the problem is the coach said this wasn't a Couturier kind of year, so no matter what, there was an issue there.
This felt so much like a Montreal Canadiens excuse. And I'm sitting there like this is the kind of excuse the Montreal Canadiens coach would throw out there. And don't mean to give Montreal, but this is a typical Canadians' excuse. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Courrier was injured. So what the hell does that? I mean, honestly, when Russ was telling me what he just said, and my first reaction was, you've got a team, a coach, and a general manager that are using the pandemic, that are using COVID and the delays that it came with it as the excuse for the reason the team missed the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres, who missed 2 weeks, their coach, half their team were COVID positive. They didn't use COVID as an excuse.
No.
The friggin' team is using.
Yeah, the Flyers love to use it, and they use it right away. And
they had some games shut down. They did. They had some games shut down.
And they had more guys, I think, at once that had it, but the Canucks aren't using it. I mean, the Canucks are definitely worse than them.
But here's a quote. Here's something that I pulled from it. When AV was saying that he wanted a normal season, normal camp, and he asked people to get vaccinated, he wants an 82-game season with the regular road trips and everything else. Guess what? Not only because he hasn't had that in 2 years, and he said, Chuck can't give that to me, only society can. But guess what? You may not get that next year either, and you have to adapt. That's your job as a coach. You have to adapt, and whatever comes up, you have to figure out. He didn't figure it out.
More than that, you have to adapt. You cannot. I'm sitting there, and tried to get a question and couldn't get it in. But my question was this: it's like with the lack of the time you spend in a locker room, and a team that is going to be built up next year of guys in their early 30s and guys in their early 20s. Where's the connection? Like how do you bridge that gap without being in there? Like who do you expect to be the guy? Is it going to be an assistant coach that's going to be bridging that gap? Because Therrien is not that guy to bridge that gap, and maybe Yo is. I don't know, but I did get the impression though that those guys will be sacrificed. Like I don't know why. I just got no one really brought it up. And I wanted to ask, Therrien and Yo, are they
sacrificed?
Therrien and Yo, like I could see the Flyers getting rid of their assistant coach.
No, I don't think they're going to. I think management has stayed the course because they're using the COVID thing. I think Dillabaugh is in trouble because they talked badly about the goaltending for the last couple of years, talking about being 27th and 31st place. But here's the issue. Yes, the backup goaltending was bad only because Elliott's older, and with the compressed schedule, it wasn't great. Now, somebody in the organization should have figured that out and either used Alex Lyon or picked up another goalie when there were other goalies out there, plenty of them, to lighten the load there and realize we're losing points here. The other thing is the defense has been a problem for 2 years. It wasn't a problem in the bubble, but Niskanen didn't even play well in the bubble. So if we're going to go back to him, they've had a problem since they left the bubble with their defense, and it wasn't addressed. And it's still not addressed.
No, it still hasn't addressed. And the reality is that they're sitting there blaming these things that are these ridiculous excuses that are that are just not. And I hate to bring up Montreal on this stuff, but Montreal just has they have this is spoken as a guy. The Montreal was my second favorite team, and it made me furious that. And sometimes, and maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe it's, and I'm not trying to rip on French people. I'm just trying to say maybe the way the French explain things sounds more like they're making excuses than they are, because it would always make me crazy. Like the running joke throughout the NHL is, between the difference between Montreal and Toronto, and the running joke throughout the NHL has always been, Toronto always blames themselves for everything that goes wrong, and Montreal always blames everybody else. Like Toronto never thinks they're good enough. Toronto never thinks they're good enough for themselves, and Montreal thinks everyone else is screwing.
You know what? I think there was a way to do this press conference that they didn't do it, and I'll just say the biggest thing that I kept taking out of it was, if I tell you I don't want to blame it on something and then bring up that something multiple times, then I am blaming it on you, even though you say that. And that is the problem.
Out loud. It doesn't matter if you don't want to blame something.
Right.
Like saying I don't want to blame COVID on the website.
It would have been better off not bringing it up at all, because they brought it up. They brought it up at the trade deadline as an excuse. So they should have left it alone and just talked about what is missing on this team and what they might do. And to be honest, I don't think Fletcher was very descriptive about what he was saying he was going to do. And honestly,
he looks like a deer in headlights to me. And then also the other thing that Fletcher did, which is abhorrent to me, absolutely abhorrent, is to sit there and say that the goaltending was terrible in a press conference like this. To basically because to me, you're not.
They didn't say Carter Hart was terrible.
But but he did say the goaltending. He didn't say.
I know that, but then when he was asked about Carter Hart specifically, he said good things about Hart. So he was straddling the fence there.
But when you say the goaltending is terrible, That is on Carter Hart. Okay, it's
No,
not on.
It's on Kim Dillabaugh, and he'll get fired as a result. You watch.
Yeah, but they needed to be better about the way they did that.
I know, but you understand they're setting it up for that.
I get that, but Carter Hart is a young kid, and he's taking. This has been a really rough year for him, right? And this is going to be. I mean, and I think he's a great goalie, and I think he'll be fine. I think he'll make his way through this, and I don't think they rushed him. I don't think he's ruined or anything like that.
I do think they rushed him. I do think he'll make his way through this.
I think he will be what people expect him to be, but eventually. But they did no favors this year in getting him towards that. They absolutely.
I agree that you saw when AB said that he was going to be out for 2 games and then didn't have him off the roster. That was a big mistake by AB.
Yeah, and they basically blamed him and said he's got to focus or concentrate more.
I know.
With the defense playing with the horrendous defense in front of him, and then also to do the thing like we talked about all year, the very Toronto thing, which again is like we're going to play Carter Hart the game 1 of every best of every 2 games, and you know he's going to be the first one, and that just always set him up.
Right. Everything Toronto is just wrong. It's just
no, I don't think so at all. I'm just saying, these are the things I've complained about that, many times about the Anderson, like he's got to play, he can't play back to back, or he's got to play the first game of every back or whatever. That's what they did. And
you know what the one thing that press conference showed me? For the first time this year in a calendar year, AV and Fletcher were on the same page because they both were saving their jobs. That's the first time we've seen them on the same page all year.
Yeah, and they were, and to me, that's in a way inexcusable.
I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying we saw it.
We are getting a lot of questions about coaching things in the chat room, so I wanted to address a couple of little rumors real quick before we go. Okay, so Tocchet to the Flyers is still out there. Do I think it's going to happen? I mean, today we see the press conference, right? And there's no reason to think that could possibly happen at this point. However, there are, as is not, how to say this without getting myself in a hell of a lot of trouble. It's not.
It ain't over till it's over. That's what you want to say.
There are factions at big companies. How about that? I'll say there's factions at big companies, and right now, one faction is the anti. I mean, the pro Fletcher Vigneault faction is winning, but those factions haven't yet had their day in court.
Well,
with the top people at Comcast.
And Mike Doyle said it right. He said Fletcher screwed up when he didn't go after a defenseman middle of the season. I said that exact same thing on Sirius XM when things were starting to fail, but they were still in the playoffs. They didn't do anything or they didn't get it done. It doesn't matter. Talk is cheap. You have to make it happen.
Just furthering on the discussion we had yesterday about coaches, 2 things came up today. One, Travis Green in his end of season availability in Vancouver said, I want to coach this team through the rebuild and get to a spot where we are getting some good young pieces and have a bright future. And I still have the same feeling. Jim Benning and Jim Benning says he wants me to coach the team, and we'll see where that goes. But Green wants a pay increase, and we don't know whether the Aquilinis will do that. The other one is Don Granato in Buffalo, and today Buffalo got all their crap out of the way yesterday with the veteran guys who were out, and we talked about that yesterday. Today it was all the young guys, and essentially every one of them, Middlestat, Dahlin, Cousin, Olofsson, there was one other player and I can't remember. They all spoke glowingly about how Granato helped them, how he was, Tage Thompson, how they worked with him. Like a couple of them played for him in the in the UNTDP. They love him as a coach. They love his pot. He was encouraging to them. You could tell by their commentary. Well, I'm not going to tell the organization what to do, but I loved playing for him.
So one question. What did Kevin Adams say publicly about Don Granato?
He hasn't said a thing yet. Tomorrow.
Okay, well, I'm going to say something here. That is wrong. It shouldn't be waiting until tomorrow. Something should have been said already. The fact that they've waited all of these days leaves me uneasy about what they're going to say about Don Granato tomorrow. Like, they could come out tomorrow and say, well, we like the job that Don did, but we're still going to open up the job for interviews, and Don will certainly be a part of that. But the fact that they've waited till Wednesday for management seems to me like they've given themselves extra time to figure out what they're going to do rather than maybe say what they should do.
I'll go even further, and I'll say they've given themselves extra time. Good, Mike, you go ahead first. Sorry.
That's when they scheduled the GM and the coach to talk.
No, but there's a reason things get scheduled the way they get scheduled.
Okay.
I think they wanted to see where the fans were at.
Okay.
I think they're paying too much attention to that. I will say that, but I think that I think that, I mean, Granato, definitely deserves another shot. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to get it there. But I think what Granato did was basically set himself up to be an NHL coach, like for real somewhere. Like,
he wants to be a coach. He certainly can be a coach.
I mean, he will be one of the first guys that when somebody's fired or whatever gets in there, or like Travis, or if Travis Green doesn't come back or Bryn Orr doesn't come back. I can see Granato in either of those situations, like that.
There's two coaches, Zach. There's two coaches right now in the NHL whose seasons have been over for days, and we don't know the status. Yeah. One is David Quinn. One is Don Granato.
Right. And then, they're both. We should. Well, yeah, the Rangers
we should know something, even if it's, hey, we're not sure yet.
So, Mike, we're definitely going to hear something tomorrow about Granato.
Is that something tomorrow from Buffalo?
Granato and Adams are speaking tomorrow to the media.
Well, it's interesting with that Granato is speaking to the media. That is interesting
because I think that's being fair to him.
Well, he was part of the season-ending player.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. I talked. Yeah. But I think.
He's still on the payroll.
Yeah. No, there's no question about that. So, all right. So the other thing, Brendan Moore.
Here's the other thing. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even if they hire another coach, Don Granato may stay with the team anyhow.
Yeah, no, he might, and it would behoove them to keep him with the team because
correct.
This is especially because you got a lot of these players that Mike you're talking about. A lot of these players that are making comments about Granato don't have contracts. Some of them.
Well, I mean, Dahlin's an RFA, but right. all the players that talk today are retainable by the Sabres and are part of the core of the future. I mean, the way some of the questions occurred to those players, asking them about the players who spoke yesterday, who were basically they were saying, well, Ristolainen, Reinhart, and Eichel, the way they're making it sound, they're gone.
Yeah.
And really, you can't refute that because they said, well, at least Reinhart and Ristolainen said, I'm open to staying. I'm open to going. It's hardly an endorsement. But
I'll tell you one thing I said on Sirius.
Out of here.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing I said on Sirius, Mike, which I believe. If the Sabres were smart, and this is not a shot at Don, if they say, hey, we're going to just interview guys.
Right.
Let's say they talk to Rick Tocchet. I said, if you put Rick Tocchet in a room with Jack Eichel for 10 minutes, he'll convince him to stay on the team.
Oh, yeah, he will.
Players love Rick Tocchet. And
yeah, they do.
It's a way to turn around Jack Eichel.
He speaks their language for sure. And, Granato also has a really good relationship with Eichel too. So the question is, and I checked into that yesterday further. So I think Tocchet is going to, now the interesting thing though, like we talked about yesterday, and it's still hearing it today, and it hasn't gone away, is the whole concept of Tortorella going there.
Yeah.
Well, but okay, this is and like I said yesterday, the thing that piques the interest on Tocchet and Buffalo is that Tocchet was in the loop for the Buffalo job previously. They know him from the interview process.
Yeah.
And that's possibly a factor. Now, there's no really connection between him and Kevin Adams, but that's
there's a Pittsburgh connection there somehow.
The Pittsburgh connection is through Rutherford, and if right. Rutherford is in as a VP of hockey operations, then you could see the connection with Tocchet, but I haven't heard anything about Rutherford coming to Buffalo. That's the dysfunction of this organization. They seemed hell-bent on Kim Pegula being the team president and Adams having direct line of contact with the Pegulas and no buffer in between. And if that's the case, that limits the options of this organization.
By the way, I've seen no quotes from Rick Tocchet on the way out talking about Arizona at all.
No, Rick Tocchet has been surprisingly silent. I text Rick Tocchet. He has been off the grid completely, which makes me wonder a lot about Seattle with him and whether or not he's holding off on that. Here's
a quote. Tocchet did give a quote. It's been an honor to be coach. He did give a quote. Okay.
He gave that quote, but he hasn't. But as far as like commenting on what's next for him, he already knows what's next for him. I have a feeling.
Yeah, he probably does.
Friedman basically said that it was essentially known since maybe March or April that Tocchet was not coming back. That Armstrong wanted his own coach, and Tocchet wanted maybe to go to some place where they're more interested in winning than Arizona.
I vouch for that. I also talked to a player on Arizona about that too, and I said, because earlier in the year I was talking to him about it, and he said, yeah. It hasn't been a secret in our locker room that Tocchet's probably not coming back, and also
But don't you find it weird that neither wanted each other? That's a very rare situation in this league.
I think they have somebody they definitely want, and that from what it sounds like they have their eye on somebody. I don't know who that is, but they've got their eye on somebody specifically.
I like Nate Lehman. I've had interactions with him. I think he's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
He would do well with young players. The young American players there would know him very well.
And then as far as Brind'Amour goes, just to answer that question, I nothing still, which is obviously he's in the playoffs, right? So they're not gonna
hear anything.
Right now. Although wouldn't it be nice that if they won a playoff series, they were suddenly announced that I think that the fact is it's easy to announce an extension to Brind'Amour right now. So the fact that they're not announcing anything right now is almost to me a sign that he's leaving, because this is the easiest time. How many we see coaches extend in the playoffs all the time.
I mean, look, the easiest thing Tom Dundon could pay Rod Brind'Amour whatever he wants, and he could have a press conference tomorrow. But you're right, that hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened, and this is the time to do it. But get your players fired up. He's your coach. He's going to be your coach moving forward. No matter what happens here, let's go out and win a Stanley Cup. That's what teams do, and they do it all the time. And we haven't seen it, right? So that to me says a lot. That says, that Brind'Amour probably wants more money than they're willing to pay. And they are also
well, the talk is Brind'Amour's got a 3-year deal on the table, or it's that they verbally agreed, but the amount is well under what everybody expects. I think the speculation was $1.8 million, which is typical of the cheapskate that Tom has done.
And a verbally agreed on contract with Rod Brind'Amour right now is I wouldn't bet on. Honestly, Brind'Amour, I don't buy any of that verbally agreed. I think that is what Carolina is putting out there to try to, and I think Chip put it out there, Chip Alexander, who's really good, and he's a really good writer, but he started off with Hockey Buzz too, so he's a Hockey Buzzer. But I have to say this, I think that sounds to me like speech, to kind of pressure Brind'Amour to almost take it. You verbally agree to something. If Brind'Amour verbally agrees to something,
that way. I agree with you, Eck. I think that is a business tactic to try and get him to prey on his loyalty a little bit.
Yeah, if the way I know Brind'Amour, and I'm sure you'd agree, Russ, because we've dealt with him before, is that if Brind'Amour verbally agrees to something, it's signed.
It's not signed, but it's a decent chance.
No,
but he's a guy of honor, so if he verbally agreed to it, it's done.
Yeah, but there's also a factor that apparently Brind'Amour is trying to get staff in the organization agreed to, and that's why he's holding out, to make sure that they're all locked in. And if he's using that as leverage, then that might be the reason why he's holding out.
And that gives him an easy out.
I'm just shocked he would accept so little on the market value for the kind of coach he is. I get that he's well off in life, which is great for him.
Yeah.
But he's not doing coaches any favors by taking a salary like this.
Right. And even though he loves Carolina, he loves being there. He also loves challenges. He loves Francis. I'm still even money that he's heading to Seattle. I really am. In my head, I think that's I would go 50-50 on that one.
All right, I got one, guys.
We got to go. We got to all go. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. I've got a really fun topic tomorrow that's going to surprise you. We'll do it tomorrow.